Countdown to Eternity starts now.
Well, hello, my dear brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another episode of Countdown to Eternity. I'm about to lose my voice, so Tom might be doing more of the talking, but we are in for an absolutely great show because we have had a crazy week and a half. Tommy, how you doing, my dear brother?
I'm doing good. Good to be with you, James. St. James.
Oh, man. Well, look, so I have to talk about several things that have happened, and we need to have a discussion about all of them, right? We didn't get to do a lot of talking about what happened in Yemen and the retaliation that took place by Israel because of what took place in Tel Aviv, the attack by the Houthis in Tel Aviv. That's an interesting thing, but even more significant is this Druze village up in the Golan Heights that was attacked by Hezbollah. And there's a lot of significance in that, a lot of variables to talk about. Maybe we talk about that first. And then maybe we just spend a minute or two talking about France and the nonsense that's going on there and a few other things that are absolutely crazy. And I can tell you this, things appear to be falling apart, but we both know that that means they're all coming together. Let's talk about the Israel thing, bro. What say you on all that?
Yeah, it's looking really bad. So it's interesting how, you have the drone strike in Tel Aviv, a week and a half ago now?
Yes.
And there's so many things that have transpired that it's almost forgotten. In fact, it would be forgotten if it wasn't for programs like this, because you have a Trump assassination attempt, you have whatever's going on with Biden, you have Captain Kamala now that is running for president and all of the insane things going on there. And people are actually trying to say she's going to be a wonderful president. Just nuts. Who could actually believe something like that? Okay, so we have that going on with her and them and that. We have Paris, and then you have the drone, this bombing of these children in the Golan, Israeli Druze, not Israeli Jews, but Israeli Druze. So what happened with the Houthi attack in Tel Aviv is it's almost like forgotten.
That's right.
Israel doesn't forget it, but in fact, you didn't even see that in mainstream media news anyways. This is a huge deal. So now Israel's been attacked from the south. They've been attacked from the north. Both are bad, but the one to me that is just extremely bad is the one in the north taking out these children. And Israel did retaliate against Yemen, which was great because they sent a very clear message. All right, you guys think you're going to do this? You think we can't do anything about it? And they just completely annihilated, just leveled this warehouse or whatever it was, weapons place in Yemen. And so you look at that, Israel sent a clear message. But I look at the northern part, James, and you got to look, is Israel going to wait? They're going to do something. I guarantee you it is not going to be, they're going to deal with this they're going to go back against Hezbollah, Iran, whatever it is, or both. It will be devastating. Israel's not going to put up with it. And Israel's also going to prove to the world they actually care about all of their citizens, not just Israeli Jews, but they also care about Israeli Druze, Israeli Christians, Israeli Arabs. They will defend their citizens, unlike the United States of America, who doesn't seem to defend its citizens anywhere. Doesn't care about the hostages over there. Doesn't care about people here within our own borders. But Israel is not going to put up with this.
Yeah,
and
no, you're
they're
right.
going to do something will be devastating. Will they do it now? Will they do it? Are they going to wait and see how the election turns out? It's a huge, you look now, this, could you imagine if Kamala Harris actually became president, how anti-Israel America will instantly become?
Well, I am going to release a video on Friday that deals with the speech that Kakala gave after she met with Netanyahu. And the speech is a very viable and active demonstration on how she knows absolutely nothing about foreign policy. She is completely ignorant with respect to not understanding or knowing her right hand from her left hand. She tried to appear presidential. She tried to appear strong, but even her lack of capacity to understand a single variable with respect to the issues related to the very subject that she was talking about in her little 8-minute press conference was striking. It was absolutely telling. And I never thought I would see the day where I would say Joe Biden himself seems to have a better grasp on foreign policy than Kamala Harris, which is an insane statement to make, because if you think about where Joe Biden has gone in the condition as a result of all of the dementia and the crazy mental misgivings that he's been having, that's a pretty big statement to make. And so what we're looking at is serious. And I believe the casualty number in the north, in the Golan Heights, is 12 children who were all playing soccer. That's just what they were doing. And here's the thing about Druze, because this is a very significant thing about Druze culture. The Druze people are always very, very, very loyal to the country in which they choose to stay. And they make it their policy overall because of the fact that they're a cult of Islam. Just like, we talk about Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult of Christianity. The Druze are a cult of Islam. And because of the retaliation that they oftentimes face as a result of what we understand and know to be a cult of Islam, they are not treated well by Muslims, and oftentimes not treated well by lots of people who are sympathizers towards Islam. So what the Druze do is they go and they hang out in areas that are very isolated, and they try to live peaceable lives while at the same time they maintain a considerable amount of loyalty to the people in whose country that they're in. And this has been a complicated situation because these particular Druze were very loyal to Syria for a substantial amount of time because of their proximity to Syria with respect to where the Golan Heights is in the place of their attack, and where it was, I want to say like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, before the annexation of some particular land. Now, the problem with that is this backfires on Hezbollah, and it certainly backfires on Iran, because now the Druze, who have had some serious conflict about their loyalties to people like Syria and some portions of Lebanon, no longer feel that way anymore, and are constantly allowing themselves to be given to the system that sits within Israeli culture to be able to affect their own security and create a condition like that. And what's even more interesting is we're seeing a prominent growth in people who are Druze, who are making a difference for Israel. As a matter of fact, in Netanyahu's speech that he gave, he featured one of the soldiers who was actually a Druze soldier that made a huge difference in protecting lots of Jewish lives as well as Druze lives. And what's even more interesting than that is when you look at some of the key people that are actually in even the diplomatic corps representing Israel, even in the United States of America, we have people that are associated with or come from or are Druze. A matter of fact, the deputy consul general that we both met is Druze, and actually speaks perfect Arabic. Seems to be a really wonderful man. But the point behind it is this is a major misgiving, and it's a backfire. And I can tell you this right now, so much so that Hezbollah just released a statement saying this wasn't us. And we don't want to take responsibility for this, which, by the way, is a sign of immense weakness. But it's also Nasrallah recognizing and understanding that he is about to lose the sympathy and the support of Lebanon with respect to the fringes that continue to hold support for them, thinking that there's security by their actions, knowing and understanding that Israel's about to go into southern Lebanon, and it's not going to be a pretty situation. So that is very complicated. And let's not even get into the attack that the Yemeni Houthis made on Tel Aviv. What's really striking about that particular issue centers around the idea that one of the drones actually got through to do that, which means they had to fly over Egyptian airspace. They had to fly over a portion of what I would call the south, let's just say the southeast Mediterranean. And on top of that, they had to have been able to go undetected partially up the coast to be able to do what they actually did, which is astounding in and of itself. But what's even more astounding is the fact that when Israel retaliated, they retaliated using Israeli Air Force jets that came in and struck very precisely and very powerfully with bombs. But what that means is there had to have been air refuelers flying up over the Red Sea. There had to have been air refuelers flying up over the any portion of the Arabian Peninsula. And that means that Israel had to have been working with some of the nations that sit on the far west coast of the African continent, as well as working hand in hand with Saudi Arabia, undoubtedly, potentially Kuwait, maybe northern Iraq. And the reality of it is they had to have had Russia all over it. And the fact that they could affect an operation like this speaks of the fact that something is coming. And I'd be willing to bet you this is the beginning of this Abraham alliance that was mentioned in Netanyahu's speech, where we might see the kind of condition of peace that's being talked about in Ezekiel 38. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And so much of it is so consequential to everything that's happening right now. It's actually mind-blowing.
I would even go so far as to say this, just caution everybody that understands and follows Bible prophecy, the kind of things we talk about, other people talk about, what's happening in the news, people who don't follow these things. Everybody's waiting for, so to speak, the next shoe to drop, right? It's like every day.
Right.
But what you just said, I think is something that people need to wrap their minds around, where if indeed Israel did what they did, which isn't an if, they actually did it. And the only way they could accomplish it was with that help of these other, or the green light from these other nations. This shows us there's a change that's taken place. Think of this, James, in light of Matthew chapter 24, verse 44. We know it's the Olivet Discourse, but a very interesting comment Jesus makes. He says, the Son of Man will come at an hour when you least expect it, or when you do not expect it. The implication there from those words is profound, because everybody in the world, we're looking at Paris, the Olympics, you look at everything that's going on, everybody's going, what in the world is happening? People in the prophecy world are saying, hey, we're about ready to get taken home. Yet Jesus says, hey, the coming of the Son of Man. Granted, he's speaking about the second coming, not the rapture. Nevertheless, something has to give between now and then, whether it's before the rapture or after the rapture. Something has to give to make the world go into a place of going, hey, it's like everything is getting ready to turn on its head.
Yep.
And it's going to be extremely deceptive, but it fits with what you're saying, because it's like something's about ready to change. And I just want to caution everybody, when you're looking at everything, greater deception is coming, but also some type of, some type of agreement, peace, something. And I'm not saying the Daniel chapter 9 agreement of Antichrist at this point. I'm not saying that, but I am saying something is going to happen, whether it's before the rapture or after the rapture, that portends we've arrived. If we can let our guard down.
Right. Oh, yeah. And look, what you're saying is very wise, especially in an era where we're hearing a lot of people getting online and making a bunch of irresponsible statements in the name of Bible prophecy, saying the most insane things. Last year, we were riddled with people that said that the Lord would come, the rapture would happen before a specific date in September. We had another guy that said it was going to be September 19th because of a terrible misappropriation of the morning sun, phrase that you see in Peter. We have lots of people like that. And then there's this guy who so-called predicted Trump's assassination attempt that everybody's looking to. And if you stop for 1 minute to just look at some of the things that guy says, he's a complete false prophet. He's literally mentally unstable. He doesn't even understand the biblical precedent behind any of the things that he's saying, but he's getting a big old boost because, oh my gosh, he got this one thing right because he happened to mention something related to an ear. But that's the mindset that people are having. And then you live in a world of really bad information where people are making all kinds of statements because they're jumping on certain bandwagons to make certain assertions about very specific issues. And the irresponsible statements that are being made by so many people don't even walk in viability. And I think it's just amazing. I think the one of the greatest examples of something like this that's happened in probably the last month and a half or so has been this discussion about the petrodollar and what was going to go on with Saudi Arabia and the news where Saudi Arabia was letting go of the contract and so on and so forth. Well, when you begin to study the significance of that very story, you realize that the reason why Saudi Arabia let go of that contract or said that they weren't going to sign that contract was because they were looking to enter into a bigger, more beneficial contract that, of course, yes, is going to end up ixnaying on the United States of America. But the reason why the petrodollar is so significant has nothing to do with the value of the US dollar itself. It has everything to do with what happened 40 years ago when the initial agreement was made with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, so that when Americans spent their money to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabians could take those same dollars, even though they were prohibited to by law, and put them back into US treasuries so that they could become the beneficiary of the strength of the fiat currency that was being created by Nixon at the recommendation of Kissinger, which then created somewhat of a circle type of economy, which began to strengthen the position of the US to sort of overflow or cover over what was happening with the loss of the gold back. Now, the problem with that is, yes, Saudi Arabia saying we're no longer really all that concerned about US dollars is not as big of a deal because of the reason why people say it is. It's no longer a big deal because it's an open and blatant recognition of the fact that US treasuries are becoming worthless, which means we are very quickly headed into what I would call the inconsequentiality of the United States of America, which then we could go back and we can look at in the Bible that talks about the fact that there won't be any superpowers at the time that we come into this last day. So it's learning to make these connections, be educated about what you're actually looking at and making the right assertions. But there's a lot of people that are not doing that. They're not being responsible. They're not saying this. And it's absolutely terrible. And then you get unrighteousness and ungodliness coming into play when you're looking at what's going on with the Olympics and the fact that so many people in the Christian community aren't even speaking up about it. It's like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah. So let me talk about the economy for just a minute. When I think it's 90% of the world's economy involves the petrodollar.
Easily.
So
The US dollar. Yes.
yeah, maybe 95%. So you look at it, okay, what is realistically the dollar collapses, everything in the world collapses. It's not even a question. Here's another thing that nobody can ever answer. If somebody's going to invest in something, that money, they're not going to invest in Russia. I mean, a few people might. You're not going to invest in China, not with what's going on there right now. Where are
Right.
you going to invest? A foreigner in the United States. Although, okay, we understand the treasuries, we understand its dynamics, but it's not as simple of a collapse as people make it sound like it is. It's like, the dollar's falling, therefore I'm going to stash cash under my mattress. There's so many different, the dollar's connected with everything.
Yep, that's right.
So, and China is in a free fall. I want to, James, you and I talked about that 2 years ago.
Oh,
2
yeah.
years ago, we said this is coming to China, and everybody said we were nuts because, the false teaching of the 200 million man army. But that's another story, right?
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
I'd just say inaccurate teaching. Maybe that'd be more the right way to say it. Okay, so, but we said, listen, Chinese economy is going to collapse, and now people are finally starting to talk about it. What is going on with the economy in China? Russia's got trouble. You start looking and going, wait a minute. Uh, where are you going to put your money? It's going to flow into the United States. So you still have this dynamic of the treasuries and these other things. We have the worst administration probably in the history of the United States operating right now. We don't know, who's actually calling everything. Well, the deep state is. Whoever's running Biden and Harris. Could you imagine Harris running everything? Oy vey. I mean, what a shocker. You think we got trouble now? I mean, things are so weird now, starting to look and go, wow, I'm longing for the good old days of Joe Biden. I mean, that's how insane things are getting. This
You're
is
right.
how bad it is. And
You're
believe me,
not
I'm
wrong.
not a Joe Biden fan. Y'all know that. But it's looking at how bad things are. What's going to happen to Israel? What's going to happen to the economy? What's going to happen with these different things? But we know this is going to collapse. But I don't believe the United States is going to collapse today over the economy. And when you look at what you're talking about with the petrodollar, listen, you said it when we talked this, was it 2 months ago? That listen, MBS, what he was doing was just he's a businessman. He was
Yep.
working. I remember you saying that when I brought it up. He's a businessman. He's working this out to the
Yep.
best advantage of Saudi Arabia. That's what he's doing.
Yep. Yep. And this dynamic that's going on right now with everybody, not really shedding light on this dynamic with the petrodollar becomes a bigger issue, because it's a lot bigger than how people are minimizing it, but most people are not seeing through it in ways that me and you have been breaking it down. And there's a few other guys that have been breaking it down correctly. But the reality of it is, the very moment we begin to see an adamant disregard for the power of the US Treasury bond or the Treasury notes, it's a wrap. The power of the US dollar goes away. And as the power of the US dollar begins to go away, then the diminishment of people utilizing it as a hedging currency is gone, and the reserve currency status begins to fall apart. And the moment that begins to fall apart, you have to understand that the literal fiat that exists within lots of currencies internationally happens to be a non-fiat currency like the US dollar. So for example, the US dollar became a fiat currency when it stopped being backed by gold, okay? Well, the reality of it is, you have to understand, the currency of the US dollar becomes a backing for many other economies and many other dollars. And when that currency begins to fail, because the notes that are oftentimes associated with the value of those dollars begin to go away, then it becomes a huge problem. Think about it like this, okay? When we create a condition of inflation because we're printing out lots of notes, printing out lots of dollars, which, by the way, we printed out way more dollars during the time of Trump and the beginning of the time of Biden than we have in the history of our existence as a nation. We can typically get away with it because what we end up doing is we end up pumping all of those extra dollars all around the world, and we, in essence, release the inflation mechanism. In other words, think of it like a balloon. You blow up a balloon, the balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You can release the air into the other balloons of other countries because they're relying upon your dollars. And so your dollars don't necessarily lose the kind of value that they would typically lose if it was some other country. But the problem is when other countries who hold on to those dollars begin to lose faith in the documents that actually back those dollars, like treasury notes, then the value of those dollars become worthless, and they stop trading based on that currency, and they start looking into other alternatives, like cashless alternatives, like the ones that BRICS is proposing, and some of the other things that are going on. And when you look at what Putin is doing right now, especially in Russia, with respect to how he's beginning to manipulate Russian currency, it really can become a very significant issue. And the Forex market is completely changing. The foreign exchange currencies, they're completely changing. The way that we're looking at indexes are changing. If you start looking at just simple indicators, stochastics and things like that give us an indicator where the Forex markets are going, they're inflating. And as they're beginning to inflate, they are a reflection of a bubble that's about to burst, which is in essence going to be the United States of America. And I have news for you: when that bubble bursts, then so will the ability to acquire energy from a lot of these other bigger nations that are supported by it. That's when we'll begin to see the conditions necessary to bring us into the picture of the final Antichrist and the world that we approach. Now, how soon is that? I don't know. I mean, we just don't know. But that's what we're seeing, and it's getting very, very, very ugly. And I don't remember who it was you had a talk with on this. I think it was Britt. You and Britt had a conversation on this. He had some very intelligent things to say about the economy that I thought were really smart. It was an older video you made with him. I think it was probably 2 months ago or 3 months ago, where I listened to some of it. I didn't get to listen to all of it. It's like, yeah, he gets it. Like he has a solid understanding. Where you guys were going with it was very, I'm not going to call it prophetic, but certainly astute in understanding how these inflation mechanisms are going to become the beginning of the end, especially when we begin to see countries like Saudi Arabia lose faith in United States treasuries, treasury bonds, treasury notes, thus beginning to say, hey, we're moving in another direction. So like that, I think this is a very important picture, because the backing is driving us into this place where we're going to watch this implosion. And bro, it's not going to be pretty. It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Britt Gillette. But the problem is Saudi Arabia says, okay, we've lost faith in U.S. Treasury. China does the same thing. Where are they going to go? It's still a problem. BRICS isn't the answer, no matter what some people are saying.
That's right.
And so it's going to, what's going to happen is it will collapse. We don't know when. And there will be a digital currency. It's going to be a global reset.
Have
But I
to.
just don't know when. And everybody wants to know, well, when is it going to happen? I don't believe it's going to happen tonight. It could, but I don't see it happening tonight. But it is going to happen, and it will be a global reset. And thinking of global resets, James, well, I guess we can't not talk about what happened in Paris.
Ugh.
I mean, we only got a couple of minutes left, if even that. But I mean,
These
when we look at the state of the world that hates this world hates Jesus Christ. Satan hates Jesus Christ. And Satan has many followers. It's been on display with the Olympics. Granted, a worship service broke out and there's been protests against what they did. But these people have shown, these people who lead these things, who are in charge of these things, same types of people that run Silicon Valley, World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, they all have the same mindset.
Yep.
And it's an antichrist mindset. This world is prepared for antichrist.
Yep. 100%, bro. 100%. And I'm telling you, Tommy, it's getting darker and it's getting uglier. And there is no reason why. There's not a single reason why a single Christian should be spending even 2 minutes watching the Olympics. It's just terrible. But you're right. They are enemies of the gospel. Of all the things you're going to ridicule and make fun of, you're going to make fun of the Last Supper. You're gonna bring in drags and you're gonna do all this nonsense where you're exploiting children and you're playing these games. It's like, this is the world that we're going in. This is the direction that everything is being taken in. And what's crazy is, as the enemies of the gospel continue to do what they're doing, it seems as though the church is almost scared to speak up about it and to say anything. And we know that the end is coming. And if we know that the end is coming and we know the end is near, then why are we being so shy about being bold about it? Can I tell you a funny story from my childhood? This will help add some perspective to it. Kind of a funny thing. I had a kid who was in my school who was, he was just a total bully, okay? And he was a bigger guy. He was kind of a tough guy. And he always just picked on me and my friends. So one day I decided that I was going to do something to end it. So my mom had told me that morning that she was going to come and pick me up from school a little early, which meant she was going to be waiting outside of the front of the school right after the school bell rings. So I knew that that was going to happen. I knew my mom was coming early. I knew she was coming soon. So at the end of lunch, I walked up to this guy. I pushed him as hard as I can. And I said, I'm going to beat you. And I said some choice words. I'm going to beat you, blah, 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 after school. You're never going to get away with doing this to me or my friends ever again. And I'm going to tear you up. Bro, the whole school lost their minds. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a fight between James and Dimitri, and it's not going to be good. And man, it's going to be bad. And I've never seen James this crazy. He's never been known to be a fighter like this, whatever. So end of school. I know that my class is right near the front of the school hall. I see my mom's station wagon right there, and I know what my mom would do. I knew what she would do the second this happened. So I walk out very slowly. My mom was like, come on. I told you to come on. And I delay a little bit. My mom's beginning to get out of the car because she's like, what the heck are you doing, right? And I see this guy, Dimitri, coming right up to me. And as hard and as fast as I can, I run up to him. I push him as hard as I can, try to throw a punch at him, knowing full well that he's going to beat my rear. He's just going to beat the snot out of me. Mind you, I'm in elementary school, and I know he's going to beat me up. Believe it or not, he's bigger than me. And I saw this, and I knew what was going to happen. My mom stepped in. She held me back because she could see what was going on. And I start yelling at him, you're lucky my mom's holding me back. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to kill you. And I'm saying every kind of crazy thing I can in the book. And people looked at me and went, wow, he's crazy. And it scared Dimitri. And he never messed with me again. Well, what I knew was that my mom was around the corner. And I knew that my mom would be with me, which is why I got aggressive and I said, here we go. And the story behind this is we have to be the type of people that recognize we're in the last days. The Lord is with us. You know what I mean? Like we are in the last days from the very moment that Christ resurrected from the dead, but we're literally in the last minutes of the last days. And it's like, if we know that we have Christ with us and he's told us to give it everything we've got because he could come at any moment, why aren't we doing that? God is with us. He's going to protect us. That's my view on it.
Amen. And you know what? I just discovered this is when the James Kaddis I know came to life. Was back then it was Dimitri. Hey, I know we're out of time, but what a great program today, James. And just a reminder, we are in the last of the last days, and we got to be ready. And we can see all of these different things coming together. And don't be afraid of an economic collapse. If it happens while we're still here, it happens. But it's be happening to everybody. We have the answer. We have hope. Our hope is in Jesus, and we need to remember that.
God is with us. I mean, I think that's like the most important, like to recognize that, man, the Lord is with us, and he knows. He knows.
Amen. Amen.
So it's powerful stuff. It's exciting, just to know that God is with us and he'll never leave us and he'll never forsake us. So, all right, bro, any final words?
Yes. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, Paul says, in those days, evil men will wax worse and worse. Next verse 14, he says, but you remember the Holy Scriptures, which you are rooted in. Don't forget, so as we see all of these things, it's the but you message for everybody. But you, Christian, remember the Holy Scripture is true. It's given by God. It's inspired by God and has everything in it that we need to remind us of the strength that we have because the Lord has saved us.
Yeah. Amen to that, bro. I could not agree with you more. And folks, we do sincerely hope that you enjoyed listening to this as much as we've enjoyed watching it. We sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts, love you with everything in us. We're honored that you give us the joy and the privilege and the blessing and the honor of being able to minister to you this way. We don't minimize it. May God richly bless you on behalf of the great Tom Hughes. We love you guys. We pray and hope that you'll continue to be blessed. God bless you as we continue to count down to eternity.